Hi everybody, Matt Lawton here. This is the Astrological Winds channel, and I'm going to take a look at the astrological weather report for the month of March and for the week of February 28th through March 6th. And actually there's a lot more going on in the weekly report than the monthly report, but two things I want to touch upon really quick before going into the monthly and weekly, and that is, I want to talk a little bit just about, the current situation going on in Russia and Ukraine with the war that Putin ordered last week. And what was interesting is the day of the attack was the day of the Jupiter semi-square Pluto last week. So how fitting. Now, Putin apparently doesn't have a good astrologer, because you would never choose to attack another country under that aspect. It really, if you remember what I talked about with the negative part of that, is people who are in power, like making these moves that are very selfishly oriented, kind of like put themselves on an island and frustrate the semi-square, frustrate the collective, who will not react to that in a positive way, and ultimately cause their own destruction in what they tried to do. And we can already see several days into the war, it's not really going the way that Mr. Putin thought it was going to go, and that he's isolating himself more and more. So this is the Jupiter semi-square Pluto at work in a very real world example for us to see how, when we don't use our power and our value systems for the greater good, it will backfire on us. And so this is what I'm going to predict right now. If there's no ending to this conflict soon, it is going to disintegrate into another Afghanistan for Russia, like they had in the 80s when they were the Soviet Union. They are going to get stuck in a war that never ends, basically, a guerrilla warfare situation. And because they started it, or Putin started it, under this particular aspect, and this is not going to cooperate with him. So even 150,000 troops in a country that big is no control over that country. They will dissolve into a long guerrilla warfare if they stick around there, and he will be the one who ends up being frustrated, and watching the ends of what he was expecting get destroyed by the means he decided to go about and do it. So this is a really good lesson for us, that about how Pluto operates, and when we get like on our higher horse about values and think that we can push our philosophies and values on others, when they're really underneath mainly benefiting only us, Pluto will destroy that and purge it from you. So we have a really good lesson for all of us to look into together. And if you're listening to my blog from Ukraine, just know that the rest of the world really seems to have evolutionized beyond this kind of old way of thinking, and the way that it's been responded to by the Ukrainians and by the president of Ukraine is quite admirable. And I'd like to make one other comment about that. So Ukraine as a country has 3 different charts, and one of them was, the original Ukraine back in 1918, but then it was occupied by the Soviet Union for many years, so really was not a country again until 1991, when it declared independence on August 24th of 1991. And to me, there was even a third chart when the independence was legally accepted by the rest of the world on December 1st of 1991. But when I looked at these three charts, I kind of was just like, this is Uranus Saturn square, obviously, is hitting something in the Ukraine charts. And so what it's hitting is that second chart when they declared independence on August 24th, 1991. Check this out, folks. This is like so amazing how astrology works again. The Saturn-Uranus square has formed a T-square with the Pluto in that chart in the 10th house of the leadership. So I think this is just like amazing because, like, you know, Putin's excuse to go after Ukraine was he said that it was illegal leadership and that they weren't truly representing the people. So, you know, his aim is to try to either arrest or kill, you know, the people who are currently in power, which is the 10th house, the people leading the president. And so there's the Pluto signature up there of the violence and the power struggle coming in. But more so than that, wow, like, you know, how the president of Ukraine has rallied his people and become this Plutonian figure himself by standing up in the face of this destruction and violence and assault and gaining power and popularity every hour with his people and the rest of the world. So this T-square is super stressful. It's an attack on their land. You know, it's an attack, you know, where the people have had to rally, you know, around the president and the current leadership. And interestingly enough, too, the the T-square is showing like how you can, you know, face up in a time of stress and conflict and become the person you're supposed to be and embody, you know, that signature of energy. So for him, this Pluto is like, I am going to stand up in the face of this violence and intensity and become this very powerful magnetic type leader himself. So wow, you know, really two amazing examples for all of us to see how astrology can really influence us. And, you know, and remember that Jupiter, Pluto, that's us in our lives too. You know, that, you know, when we're in power, if we choose to use it for mainly our own benefit, even if secretly, we're going to end up getting a lot of frustrating reactions to that. And we're going to end up destroying our own ends because of the means we decided to take. So some really good lessons there. And then also, you know, showing us that when the structure of something falls apart, you know, in this Saturn-Uranus square times, that we can still use the Uranus energy of creativity and spontaneity to react to that in new ways that are surprising. And maybe some of them are gonna, like, you know, change things very rapidly in unexpected ways. So very interesting lessons there for us. All right. March does not have a lot going on as far as a month with the outer planets aspecting one another or changing signs. Of course, we have the Saturn-Uranus square still going right in our face. And really, the most important thing I want to tell you guys about March, and I think I mentioned it briefly when Mercury went direct about a month ago now, about 4 weeks ago, there are no planets right now that are retrograde. Every one of the planets, the 8 planets, are going direct right now. And they will continue to do that for all of March and almost all of April until April 29th when Pluto goes retrograde. All of the planets are direct. And so what does that mean? It means full steam ahead. It means like whatever you're doing right now, it's a time to push that. Like, it can really like be externalized into the world right now. So like a lot of focus on outside of you too now, and effectiveness in being able to push actions forward and get a lot of results from it. So to me, that's actually the single most important thing in March, is that, you know, we have all these planets in direct motion. They're moving quickly. You know, and things are going to be moving quickly, but like a lot of ground can be made now, you know, like a lot of stuff can really be made. Now, the other thing that's interesting, two other things in March that I think are interesting, and they both perfect this week, so it's all early March. Mars and Venus, if you remember last week, they conjuncted in late Capricorn, and they are literally hand in hand right now. It's like, you know, the goddess and the god are walking, you know, down the aisle together right now, hand in hand. Like, they're literally in the same degree. So they're right at the end of Capricorn, and they're going to be traveling together all this week into next week. So I'm going to really get into that in the weekly in just a minute. But that's one of the big things this month too, is that, you know, Mars and Venus very close together, especially at the beginning of the month, and, you know, really functioning well together on that level. And then the other thing is there is two asteroid aspects from outer planets going to asteroids that I think are relatively big, and they're both this week again too. And the one in particular, I just want to mention right away, because once again, it really ties in to what's going on in the situation in the world right now with Ukraine and Russia, and that is Pluto is conjunct the asteroid Vesta. So, you know, on an individual level, you know, that can, you know, have us all focus like really deeply on stuff, and like, you know, really get our energy behind something that we believe in and want to rebuild it or regenerate it. So it's usually some kind of social or spiritual cause that we're really into, like helping ourselves and the world transform around. But on a negative level, this is where, once again, we can see how Putin fell into a negative way of dealing with this energy. Like, you know, you dude needs an astrologer, you know, I don't know what else to say, but it's like, you know, the negative way of a Pluto Vesta conjunction that it would manifest would be like using your power for your own personal gain. And then literally putting out a mass destruction energy and trying to use fear and paranoia to, you know, behind that. And that's actually fear and paranoia that's coming out of you. That's actually why you're putting it out there. So it really ends up isolating people from the rest of society when they react negatively to that. Now, is that the description of what's going on with Putin right now? It's just like, you know, perfect. So that is perfecting on March 6th and will be in orb for all this year. Pluto conjunct Vesta is really people wanting to like transform the world based on some cause, or on a negative sense, some fear that they have. So something to really look into there. All right, let's get to the week. Now, the first thing I'm going to mention about the week is we're going right back to the Venus and Mars conjunction from last week. So they're moving hand in hand, and they make a bunch of aspects together this week that, you know, are a mixed bag, basically. So, and it starts today on Monday the 28th, the last day of February, and when they both trine the North Node together. Now, this is a good thing. This is like, you know, a time when you can really connect with others really well, both on like individual and group levels, and like really fire up creative energy. There's really a great flow between you and other people, and therefore what happens is there's a lot of co-creative acts together. Mars is acting and Venus is like this creative energy, and this is like on a very personal, down to earth way, everyday existence. So it really can move a lot of energy, and there's this desire to connect with others that you really are even willing to change in order to make those connections. So like it's very much artistically co-creative and very cooperative on many levels, and there's like just like a higher consciousness of being able to tap into, of wanting to initiate and be connected with others. And like I said, that can be on individual or group levels. But when that happens, successful endeavors basically occur, and so there can be a lot of shared success. So that, like I said, is exact on this Monday. But then they're traveling together, and by Thursday they conjunct Pluto together. Okay, so on the worlds, and all three of them, so we have Venus, Mars, Pluto conjunct at 28 degrees Capricorn, critical degree of learning how to use your power well. But Mars in Capricorn can be the conqueror, and he can be the despot. Even though he's strong there, he can get really out on an island, and there can create a lot of enemies, a lot of people who will want to take that energy down. It's very interesting. The three of them are semi-squaring the sun at the same time, and that's all of us feeling, frustration from what's going on. But what, when we talk about Venus, Mars, and Pluto together, this is a powder keg powerhouse of energy. It's like, and it will be a very, very sensitive week for this war, because Mars Pluto can be mass destruction and mass violent acts, especially for people who are not conscious of their own like ego and anger blending with their power to just go out and be super aggressive. So it's really, really intense, powerful energy. And the Venus Pluto part shows that on an individual level, our relationships can get really deep with others, that they can get down to this penetrating level, but it also can be obsessive. It can, it can be coercive. It can be possessive. I mean, once again, we can use Putin as an example in the way he's reacting to the rest of the world. He's like getting into this very coercive, obsessive state. And like I said, he's making himself an island more and more. He's alienating more and more. But on a positive level, the Venus Pluto part can really bring us to deep emotional understanding of ourselves through the relationships that we have with others. So it can be a really intense time where other people and the relationships you have then feed the Mars part and motivate you to want to take action, to want to change, to want to reform things, regenerate your life, just rebuild things, just really get to a point where you can use that energy very positively. So for people who are like, lovers can have very intense experiences together where they can process a lot of deep emotional stuff together and either react to that in positive or negative ways, and where the Mars can either be like, hey, this really motivates me to want to change, or it can go back into like trying to control the situation. So, but I mean, Pluto, Mars, and Venus can bring infatuations, and you got when it goes into a negative space, can really dissolve into power struggles, into head games, into manipulating other people's emotions. So you can see, and especially Mars Capricorn, you have Mars in Capricorn. When it's triggered, it's going to try to control things. It's going to try to become a dictator, basically. It's going to try to control emotional reactions of everyone. So, and basically, with Mars and Cap, everyone is kind of going for what they want to go for right now, and so that can create a lot of upsets, a lot of violence, a lot of reactive behavior to what you're doing, and a lot of militant behavior of wanting to try to control the situation. So like I said, Putin is really a great example for all of us right now. He is such a great teacher for us not to take these energies to a negative place. And, but it's energy that is really strong and determined too. So if we can turn that around and use it to instead change and reform, do what Pluto is asking you to do on a positive level, reform, regenerate, rise from the ashes of what's going on, and your relationships with others, your money, and your assets, your creativity are all these things that are going to drive and motivate Pluto and Mars to do something. It's like, but how are we going to do it? Are we going to do it old school, like trying to control situations, or are we going to use it mainly to try to change ourselves, connect with others, and do the hard work that we want? Because Capricorn it does promise success, when that kind of work is put in and when wisdom is used to stop. But, some conflict is likely inevitable in this situation. And, the violence, just like we can ask our Ukrainian brethren and sisters, that, is very possible in this situation. Then by Saturday, the two of them still hand in hand, still walking this week down the aisle together. On Saturday, they both go into Aquarius together. Both Venus and Mars go into Aquarius together, changing signs. Very interesting there, too. Neither one of them are particularly strong in Aquarius, although neither one of them are really weakened either. It's kind of almost like a neutral sign for the two of them. If anything, Venus is a little bit stronger in Aquarius. It's got a tiny minor, positive thing in Aquarius, whereas Mars is completely neutral. So with Venus goes into Aquarius, relationships are valued for the intellectual level mainly, and so it's a highly sociable time, actually. People, Venus in Aquarius, people really want to go out and socialize and meet other people, and especially on superficial intellectual connection type levels. So there can be a lot of sharing of information and really wanting to be with your friends, just socializing. Definitely not into the deep emotional stuff. We'll actually kind of run away from that. But can really get into creative projects using technology, computer art, is a good time for things like that. Group projects too, and as far as relationships on a personal level, Venus and Aquarius can attract us to people who are different than us, who are alternative or cutting edge, or just different from who we normally might hang out with or be with. So kind of interesting there. Now Mars in Aquarius, like I said, is neutral, and it can go either way a lot of times with Mars and Aquarius, because Mars can get really super motivated once again by what it believes in Aquarius. The problem is, if it takes it too far, it ends up being alone on an island again in this very stubborn state of like thinking, well, I know what's best for everyone and everything. So, so it can, so that, but the good thing about Mars and Aquarius, once again, is that it will fight for its ideals. It's very similar to the Pluto Vesta conjunction, actually, where it's like, hey, if I believe these ideals are right, I will fight for these things. And that's what we have to, ask ourselves is like, are, the ideals that are motivating us, are they worthy of, ratcheting it up to that level? So all week long, Venus and Mars together. Now, a couple other things I do want to mention this week. If you remember last week, I said Mercury squaring Uranus on, I think it was on Thursday. Yes, I believe so. That was gonna, start triggering the Saturn-Uranus square, and that this week would be where Mercury exactly conjuncts Saturn. So that's what it will be doing Wednesday. And so this whole time, since last Thursday, Wednesday, all the way through the middle of this week, Mercury is triggering the Uranus-Saturn square. And once again, we've got a great example in that main story of the world. Right when Mercury squared Uranus last week, Putin attacked Ukraine, surprising everyone, putting the world into this nervous frenzy. Communications, information firing at us, blah, blah, blah. Too much to process at once. Things happening very quickly, having to react to those things. So now Mercury's coming to that conjunction with Saturn. And even today, the moon conjuncts Mercury and Saturn tonight, and Putin and Russia are willing to sit down, they're saying today, with Ukraine and maybe try to start figuring out a way out of the mess they got themselves into. So you can see now, what does that mean? Mercury-Saturn conjunct is like, oh, reality feedback. Wow. Okay, now what am I going to do about a situation that got out of control? So it's time of really serious communications, serious thoughts, having to do with practical and real world matters, kind of taking a conservative, cautious approach to things, trying to regain control of situations that have spun out of control, trying to slow things down, slow down our words and thoughts. But that's really good for focusing, for really getting to stable, hammered out positions. Problem is it can get narrow-minded too. It does have a tendency to see the glass half empty, but right now that may be what's required in many situations. But it is a great time to make plans, to organize things, to get, to kind of make judgments about how you're going to approach things. The thing is, you can get really picky and too much so, and not get good reactions if you get too judgmental with this one. But it is really good for hammering out negotiations and and just getting information detailed down to us. Using our best mental skills to figure out what we're going to do, basically. But it can bring in a gloomy, kind of depressed, half empty looking way to the mind too. So susceptible for people who have depression and things like that. There's a susceptibility to that. Now, on top of all this other stuff going on, there's also a new moon at 12-13 degrees Pisces on Wednesday. And this is a great one. This new moon is a real good one because if you remember, I talked about the Jupiter sextile Uranus as the best aspect of February. And, granted, it's a couple weeks away now from when it was exact, but this new moon is triggering it again. It's conjunct Jupiter, and it's a new moon in Pisces, so it's actually conjunct the ruler of the new moon itself, which is Jupiter, and it's sextiling Uranus. So it's really triggering that great Jupiter-Uranus sextile again, which is so much about opportunities to change ourselves, to bring in new growth, new experiences, to really expand our world, to become more tolerant, to become more accepting, to bring in more knowledge, to bring in all that kind of stuff. So this is a very powerful new moon that where we can take an opportunity to change our life journey and get a lot of personal growth and expansive change through this. It's a really, the moon in Pisces wants to merge with everything, with things that are greater than itself. So it's an opportunity with the Uranus and Jupiter there to bring in new ideas, new energy, new opportunities that can bring about, this expansion and benefits into your life. Jupiter is the great benefit planet. And so it's an opportunity to be inspired, to, use your imagination to induce creative change into your life. And it's, it's kind of like making your dream come true steps, But you've got the workbook, so you're the one who has to do that, and it can be very spiritually guided, Jupiter in Pisces, and very sensitive to what's going around us in other people and in our environment. So it really, we can really respond to that energy and take more in and merge with it and bring a lot of opportunities to ourselves. The danger of this would be being a little bit too passive, actually, if anything, or allowing others to mislead you. That's kind of one of the Piscean dangers too. But it is an opportunity for all of us to, move beyond past perceived differences, where the Pisces is like, the two fish swimming away from each other and not seeing one another. This is a chance where they can, see beyond the differences and see where they are actually similar. And maybe that's, maybe the whole lesson of all of what's going on in the world right now is bringing humans closer and closer to understanding that maybe we're a lot more similar than we've been perceiving. So, but Uranus is gonna, give us the push and the desire to change things, to want to bring some excitement into our life, to want to make new connections, to take the new wisdom and knowledge that we have and bring them into our lives somehow, expand our lives, bring exciting change into our lives. And it's a time when we can use technology once again as an ally to do that, in different ways. So it really, gives us the ability to think in a bigger picture, in a future way, and want to change our surroundings and environments. So very interesting. And then, of course, the danger for Pisces is always going to be you're with me or you're against me. So the old time religion of if you're not with us, we're going to whatever, burn you at the stake, put you on the cross, whatever it may be, throw you in the dungeon. In this kind of thinking that your way is the only way. So once again, we can use Mr. Putin as an example of someone who's thinks that and will, go to war or throw his enemies or kill his enemies or anyone who disagrees with him. So, this is where you don't want to go with Pisces and then, escaping and being passive because it's a time when you have a sextile, you have to use it. It's not going to come in, and force you to use it. So don't, allow the opportunity to go by is a good way to say this too. And the one last thing I want to mention too, like I said, there were two asteroids that were getting hit by long-term planets this month and this week, actually. And so the other one, besides Pluto conjuncting Vesta, was Uranus squares Juno this month. And so that can shake up partnerships for sure. there can be some unexpected changes that come into partnerships, and a desire for possibly more freedom from certain partnerships, and can even you may actually decide that your partner's unreliable with their commitments, or you may decide that you can't live up to the commitments that you make, and are more freedom seeking. So at its worst way is it could even create separations from partners, and just challenging the existing roles of partners and how that is. So that's the last thing I wanted to mention for this week, and gone on a while because we had monthly, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the Ukraine and Putin because he's being such a great teacher for all of us right now. And like I said, if you're a listener in Ukraine, mine and many other people's in the world's best wishes are with you to stay strong. Our prayers are with you, and hopefully we can, de-escalate the situation immediately and stop people from getting killed or hurt. That would be the number one thing to start from right there. But anyway, this is Matt Lawton. This is the Astrological Winds channel. It is on YouTube. And if you have a YouTube account, you can become a follower and turn on your notifications, and you'll know when it's up every week on Monday. You'll be the first ones notified. Otherwise, other ways to hear it are on podcast. It's on a whole bunch of podcasts. It's distributed by Buzzsprout. It's on Reason. It's on Spotify. It's on Apple iPod. Just go to whatever podcast you use and search Astrological Winds channel. So you really don't need to see me. It's really hearing what I say that's important. And if you don't know astrology, remember, listen between the astrological terms. It's the energy that's important, not the astrological terms. It's also available on Instagram. Astrological Winds channel is on Instagram. Become a follower, and if you do, you get bonus material because I post usually some daily stuff, not every day, but at least a couple times a week. Usually I'll post some daily stuff. So it's good but I always post the link to the blog there. And then if you want, you can friend me on Facebook. It's Matthew Lauten, Lawton, Lauten. My Facebook is private, but I do post it there too. So there's a bunch of different ways to get it. I do social media blitz people sometimes, but not everyone's on the list. And I know sometimes, if you don't want that, let me know too. I'll try to remember not to blitz you if you're getting it the other way. So otherwise, I do professional readings. This is a free service I'm offering you. Some people like to donate, and I appreciate that. Any donation, no matter how small it is, I'm very thankful for. You can donate to me under my name, Matthew Lawton, Lauten, either on PayPal or Zelle or on Venmo. But the best way to support me is if you need a reading, or someone who needs a professional astrology reading. I am available. I've been doing them for 20 years. Drop me an email at matthue823@gmail.com. That's matthue823@gmail.com. Or you can contact me through the comments section on any of those ways of listening to the blog, and we'll discuss prices. I do natal birth chart readings, which, to me is what you really need to know about yourself. Predictive readings for a year, which is your own weather report, just like this report I give every week for the world. I give that to you specifically to your chart for a year. Children's charts, relationship charts, very popular. Election charts for when you're trying to decide when to start something, the best timing. Horary questions, fixed star readings if you're looking for deeper soul purpose. So also there's 5 beginner classes that are available on Dropbox, $25 a class, or $20 if you have a student ID. I'll do a 6th class whenever someone's ready for it. yeah, so, and otherwise, the best other way you can help me out is to pass the blog along to someone else who you think might be interested in it. It's slowly growing more and more. Really appreciate it. I know there's more and more people who don't know me personally that are following it now, so that's just great, and a lot of positive reactions. So I appreciate it all. All right. Let's all say a prayer for peace for our brothers and sisters in the Ukraine and in Russia. I'm sure there's a lot of people not happy about that there too. So let's just hope we can de-escalate the situation. And in the meantime, this week, very interesting with that Mars Venus and that new moon. This is really a great opportunity for you on an individual level to connect with other people, to open up more creativity, to expand your world, to personally grow. This is it. You got to go for it, or it's not, it's just going to sit there, So let's all try to move forward together. And until next week, this is Matt Lawton, and this is the Astrological Winds channel signing off.